You know, Angela, one of the main concerns over the last, I guess, 2 events that we've had for winter freezing is, should I replant my citrus?
Right.
And I hate for people not to plant citrus. It's one of our best crops.
It is one of the very best fruiting crops for the Gulf Coast. It's a semi-tropical, we're a semi-tropical zone.
Right.
Occasionally, we're going to get bit, but that's really not a good reason to forgo growing citrus.
Right.
They can be so productive and so quickly for us.
Yeah, and there's so many very simple, easy to do steps to protect that citrus.
Right.
And I think what people get kind of confused about is they're so concerned with this foliage.
Correct.
That's our least concern.
And we don't care about that.
No.
What we really care about is this point right down here, which is the grafting point.
Right. And right here on this tree, it's very easy to see.
Right. It is easy to see. A lot of times there's a slight difference in the bark between the root stock or the graft, but most often, especially on a tree that's less than 4 or 5 years old,
right,
you can really clearly see this line. And so this portion down here, what we call the root stock, is a variety of citrus that just doesn't produce an edible fruit.
Right.
But they're very healthy, and they do give us some freeze protection. They're a little
Sure.
hardier than the top of the tree. And then this portion is our producing wood.
This is our desirable fruit right here.
What's amazing is that if we protect the graft, meaning the joint between the root stock and our favored variety, then even if we lose the top, we won't lose our tree.
Right.
We have a healthy root system. We've got clean wood here. And because of that root system, they regrow so quickly that it's just almost mind-blowing.
Well, and that's what I wanted to point out, too, is it's not like you're starting over either.
You're not.
Because of what you just said, it's going to produce quickly,
right,
coming back on that established tree.
Yes, and if you have that, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old tree or older,
right,
the root mass that you have down there, it's got all kinds of vigor in it, and it's ready to regrow as soon as that frost has passed.
Well, there's some very simple steps that you can do to protect your citrus from freezing weather, and then most of the time, it's items that you have in your potting shed to begin with.
Quite often.
And so one thing you can start with is just some bamboo stakes.
Correct.
So we would take these and put them in a teepee form
style
over our tree.
Right.
So depending on the height of the tree.
Correct. Tied at the top.
You tie it at the top.
And it's important to have these spaced around the trunk.
Right.
So that we're going to form a tent.
Okay.
We don't really want to wrap our tree.
Okay.
We want to form a tent around our tree so that it's open to the soil below, because that soil is holding a lot of heat.
It does.
And as that heat rises during the freeze event, we're going to trap it in the canopy of the tree.
Right. And then we want to wrap.
Correct.
And wrap directly.
On a tent.
with your insulating cloth.
Yes, right. And the good thing about this is that insulate, the sizes that it comes are kind of perfect for protecting fruit trees. And the other thing too is, depending on the severity of the predicted freeze,
right,
you can double these up as well.
Sure.
And you can get an extra layer of protection.
And this is the pre-cut, but we also have it available in a roll.
In rolls.
So you can buy it. It's 12 feet wide and buy however many lineal feet that you need.
Which is perfect.
And customize it.
Right.
Then we want to insulate with our pine straw,
yes,
not bark.
Yeah, not bark. The problem with bark mulches for any kind of banking purposes to protect the trunk is that they don't provide enough insulation. They will actually absorb some of the cold.
Okay.
Where when we get a really good layer of pine straw, it does act as an insulation.
Right, right. So we're going to build our teepee. We're going to insulate with our pine straw and our cloth.
Right. So we're at that next level of freeze.
Now the ultimate is so incredibly simple. And we protected our sprinkler heads with this method and worked beautifully.
It makes a big difference. So you think about the fact that what you have here is a cubic foot of soil.
Right.
It's dense.
Right.
It's really good insulation. And a lot of people will bank their trees with soil, but then you lose that soil afterwards.
Right, right.
We suggest that you keep it in the bag. And that bag can be lifted And of course, assuming this tree is in the ground,
Right.
these can actually be laid right up against the trunk. If you feel like you need to, you can tie them to the trunk. It's going to kind of depend on the size and the angle.
Right.
But this will push right up against the trunk, and you're really getting this depth of insulation all the way around the trunk of the tree. And your whole goal is you care about the graft.
Right.
If you lose the top,
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Your tree will grow back. This is what you're trying to protect right here. And this does an amazing job of that.
So we could bank with this, TP with this,
Yes.
wrap with this. We've got it all.
You're in really good shape then.
That's perfect.
And little extra
Yes.
degree and a half to almost 2 degrees of protection is when
Oh,
that
right.
frost is protected, we're going to spray our foliage and drench the root system with
With our
liquid seaweed. It acts like an antifreeze for
Right.
trees. So we're going to soak that down well, and with that, we should be able to get our trees, at least our good producing wood here at the graft, through
And this is great
99%
for
of our freezes.
all of the landscape on a frost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after the freeze, you'll pull everything down. You'll wait and see. You may have some foliage loss.
Right.
You could have some tip burn on these afterwards. That's okay. Give it a little while before you start trimming, and then you can start trimming.
Right.
Then after the end of that, just because of the fact that some of the tissue has been damaged,
Right.
your tree may react by sending shoots up below the graft.
Right.
So here's your graft line right here, and it's generally at an angle because a bud is inserted into the trunk. So any new growth that comes up from this portion below that scar line,
Right.
we want to remove, because that's the it's a not flavorful variety. They're kind of
Right,
bitter.
right.
They'll produce fruit, but it's too bitter to eat. Anything that comes up above this graft, and I see lots of buds here that I know would just take off after the tree was damaged. Anything that comes up above that is our producing variety.
Right.
And it is just with an established root system, they regrow so quickly that it's almost shocking.
Yeah.
And they'll be producing for you very soon afterwards, generally in the same year following that freeze.
Exactly. Perfect. Well, so no extraordinary measures needed.
No.
Just your bags of soil from
And
the garage.
plant citrus. It's such a
Yes.
wonderful fruit for the Gulf Coast.
It really is. Thanks, Angela.